stress pill and think things over. Take a stress pill and think things over. Take a stress pill and think things over.
I don't have to tell you that things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. T-shirts cost $50. It costs hundreds of dollars to go see the Rolling Stones or the Grateful Dead. Well, Grateful Dead no more. Dead and Company. Shopkeepers can't even afford to keep a gun under the counter for fear of going to the jail themselves, you know. Punks running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. Yet people like this woman stand up there and say they got the answers, right? We know the air's polluted, unfit to breathe, and our food is crap, making people in this country, the United States, obese, diabetic, befuddled, mentally slow, weak. We sit holding our phones while some local head tells us that today we had a mass shooting in California a couple days ago, or at the same time 9 people were killed in Chicago, barely gets a mention. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We all know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything, everyone, everywhere is going crazy. So we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, behind our computer screens, with our phones. Slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please leave us alone in our living rooms. I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad, right? But first, we're going to take a stress pill and think things over. And the stress pill, my brothers and sisters, is the confidence we have in the Lord, who is the first and the last. He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is the living God, right? Good morning. It is about 6:53 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States. It is Wednesday. This is Uncle Benny's Creepy Campfire Stories. I'm your host, Uncle Benny. This is the Sludge Report Project, or Project Sludge Report, whatever. Either way, I've got to start making these creepy campfire stories. But first things first. So let's get right into what's been going on. I titled this, what did I title it? Garlic for One. All right, this is what you came here for, so let me just knock it out and get it out of the way. This is NBC News. This has not yet made it to Matt Drudge's rag, the Drudge Report, the conservatives' favorite news aggregate in the world. All right? Right here is all we have on the Garlic Festival, same as yesterday. Why Garlic Festival, quote-unquote, massacre, shooting, murders, whatever. Disturbing portrait emerges at Garlic Festival shooter. Why are so many young men angry? All right, there's a link in that juxtaposition, but let's get right to this. I went because I was at the gym earlier, and I saw up on the mind control screens, just in the closed captions, because in the background they play rap music, so you have to like tune in to watch the TV, which I don't. I listen to my own thing, but I can see the, what do you call them, closed captions, and I just caught on one of the several mind control windows something about him acting alone, and so I thought, I think that's what I believe that's what I think it is, right? Why do I say that? Because if you've watched anything about the videos about this that I made in my videos, what did I say? Initially in these kind of shootings, there's always there's very often reports of a second shooter, second person, more than one person involved, and then that goes away. Here you go. Gilroy Garlic Festival gunman. I don't say gunman. Let's think about it. Gunman. I might as well say gun white man, usually. Gunman likely acted alone, officials say. This is the official story now. Official. Our investigation is leading us more and more to believe that there was not a second person involved, Gilroy Police Chief Scott Smithy said. Boy, it actually went on a little longer than I thought. Even into Tuesday, they're looking for a second person, trying to find out if there was a second person. 3 days, 2.5 days, whatever. It didn't go away quite as fast as I've seen other ones. That's very interesting. Investors are increasingly confident there was no second person involved in the weekend attack. These are not the droids you're looking for. This is like a Jedi mind thing, right? From Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi, when the stormtroopers are questioning him because they're looking for certain droids. The Empire's looking for these droids. And he waves his hand magically in the air, and he says, "These are not the droids you're looking for." And the stormtrooper repeats hypnotically, "These are not the droids we're looking for." Then he I think he motions with his hand again. It's been 30, 40 years since I've seen this movie. And he says, "You may go about your business." And the stormtrooper says back to him, and then off they go in the land speeder, whatever. No second person involved in the weekend attack on a California food festival that killed a man and 2 children. Although a motive in the apparently random shooting remained unclear Tuesday. I think it's very interesting. They're going out of their way to say that the motive remains a mystery. We talked about that yesterday. It remained unclear, the motive. This is one of those where the motive was so blatantly implied so blatantly, if not overtly, and they're going out of their way to, and I'll show you in a minute, they always mention it. It's a do-it-yourself kit. Now, why is that? Because they're letting you fill in the blank. They are perfecting. Things have changed in the last 6 months to a year, and how they've made adjustments. Who were they? Now, obviously, the premise here is that there's something fishy going on. The premise I'm putting forth, the paradigm I'm working from here. Yeah, something stinks. The Garlic Festival shooting. Something stinks. That's why I titled the one yesterday, Garlic Breath. Sometimes it's easy to come up with the title. Other times it's not. And, hey, I'm just trying to have some fun here. I can't title it False Flag. I can't title it. And first of all, I don't have 100% proof. I've got a preponderance of evidence, I think, right now that says something's fishy here. Something's rotten in Denmark. All right? And you should too, if you're reading the news properly. If you're not just buying what they're saying. If you're not under the hypnosis. If you're not affected by the witchcraft. So, they keep saying it remains unclear. But they also will constantly put this out there as they did originally. We continue to try to understand who the shooter is, what motivated him, and if he was aligned with any particular ideology. Yet here you go. Before the shooting, a post was made to Instagram account connecting to Ligon, that's the shooter guy, which was attributed to him, that referred to a proto-fascist white supremacist manifesto by a pseudonymous, how do you say this? Pseudonymous, meaning false name. All right, pseudonymous or pen name, 19th century author. Extremism researchers have said the manifesto is part of a collection of white nationalist material that's been distributed on far-right websites. White supremacist. By the way, there's a distinction that is going to be blurred between white supremacism, which is kind of rare. It is such a small group of people who are really into that. And white nationalism, which is also relatively small, but it's not racism or white supremacism. This is like, that's another side topic. I don't want to get into all that right there, but that's one source of information. We have so many different sources of information. They don't all align. All right, this is a very key statement, by the way. If he's referring to the motivations, which is the context here, let me tell you what I believe, what I hear when I hear this. That's one source of information, but we have so many sources of information, they don't all align. Okay, he's got a brother who was he tried out for the Olympics, 2020 Olympics as a boxer. He's locally kind of a boxing, I guess, I don't know if he's professional or amateur. He's an athlete, boxer. The father was a competitive runner and a coach of some kind. So what does this mean? They don't all align. Well, his Instagram says one thing. His post or tweet that he made before he went in there, like bunch of, pave the way for mestizos, something. Either way, it was anti-Latino kind of. It seemed like he had resentment towards Mexicans, and but the people who knew him, the neighbor, right, or his brother, his family, or any friends, I don't know, sources of information describing his character as they interview people, they don't all align. What does that mean? Well, it'd be reasonable to expect that these people are saying, we would never expected this of him. This is not his character. This is not who he is. We didn't know anything about this. Well, what's that tell you? That gives a little credence. Just tuck that away. It's just one data point. We've got different sources of information. They don't all align. Well, that's because he was one way. What is this like? This is like the Aurora, Colorado shooter, right? He, brilliant young guy. I don't know. I can't remember all the things about his personality, but there's plenty of videos of him doing presentations and things like that. Nobody would have expected that he turned to this Batman Joker freak who rigged his apartment with bombs and then went into a theater, armed to the teeth and gunned people down left and right. Everybody said, well, that's not who he seemed to be. That's crazy, Well, this, again, leads credence to the, for lack of a better term, and just so you know exactly what I mean, an asset, an automaton, a Manchurian candidate. It does for me. Again, I don't have the answer here. I just have what things are pointing to. Police search Ligon's car, which was northeast of the park. We covered a second. I haven't read this. I'm just, for me, the headline was, and the point of me going into this, there's your second guy gone. Well, before I go any further in the article, let's just talk about that. Even if I don't want to go any further. That's not true. I will. The fact is that so often in these shootings, there's witnesses, eyewitnesses. There was another guy. There were several gunmen. I heard shots coming from different ends of the school or, whatever. And then all of a sudden it's a lone guy. Within hours, within a day or so, where all these witnesses just, one of the messages, one of the subtexts here, one of the byproducts of this happening, of what they do when they quash this, they let it go for a little bit. People hear this, but then they quash. Eyewitnesses can't be trusted. You can't trust any of the witnesses that were there and saw what happened or heard what happened. Any of the witnesses, you can't trust them. You won't ever be able to trust those stories. So when we come out with the official story in a day or two and get all our facts straight and get our narratives in line and tie up some loose ends for the contingencies, the things we didn't expect to happen. Again, my premise is that something's fishy here. Okay. Then you can't trust those. You can't trust that, and then so you'll dismiss it even at first blush the next time you hear it. Eventually, whenever there's a guy who's maybe looking like he's standing there calm, cool, and collected with a walkie-talkie talking to or voice-to-skull technology, or maybe the guy's got an earbud, who knows? I don't know. Or giving him visual cues. We saw the singer of that band. Now, I have no idea. It was just very curious when we watched that band playing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you got to see the woman's video of the band, and he looks in the exact direction that he looks again once the shots are clear and ringed out, something's happening. But he points to the sky like a yes, like if you're into music or something, reaches up like, yeah, bang, bang, like with his finger up. And it's perfect rhythm with the first two shots. And then he looks up where the shots are coming from. He's unfazed. He doesn't couch down, just go into a stance, freak out. That's really weird. I don't know. I don't know if there's any, it's just an observation. I don't know if there's any connection, or if that guy, is that guy the handler? I don't know. Now, that wouldn't seem to be the guy that someone might say, there was a second person. Maybe there's another person, right? I tend to think when you hear the reports that there was a second person, you need to pay real close attention to that, obviously. But as I predicted, this will go away. If I didn't say that, I'm a monkey's uncle. But the truth is, I said it. I think, both days. I said it the first day that they're going to, I was very pessimistic sounding that, well, yeah, maybe a handler or something like that, that'll go away. They'll have that go away. And that's what's happening right here. They're closing the door on that idea. And now you can't trust any of those. The people are excited. They're confused. They're shocked. They don't know. It's true. People are very poor witnesses. They're very bad witnesses. We hear that all the time. And there may be a little bit of truth to that, some truth to that. It probably is not across the board. There are some people who are excellent witnesses. I hope you and I are that kind of a person. And the clearer our mind is, and the more sure and stable our heart is, because we're grounded in the Word of God, we have peace in our hearts, we're unfazed, the more, the better witnesses we can be, because our minds are clear. So, at any rate, that's what this was about. I better wrap this up, spend 10 minutes on this. Second shooter has been quashed. That's all there really is to say about that. And I think you need to think about that. Okay? Let's see. Let's just scan it real quick. We got to get in the computers, the towers, the thumb drives, the phones to get a holistic picture of him. More things may come out. I can't sit and read and study this all day long, watch every news video. I've barely seen any news videos other than what you and I have watched together. Again, don't get any on you. There were 9 people killed in Chicago over the weekend, and I don't remember how many others injured. Was it 50-something? I don't remember. It was a lot. And out here, there were 15 injured and three killed, which all of them, every single individual injury or death is a horrible, very consequential thing. If you get shot, even if you're grazed, that's going to do something to you. Especially if you were just an innocent person walking down the street and it was a stray bullet between gang fights or something, that's gonna mess you up. You're gonna have to cope with that. That's a reality you're gonna have to deal with. It's one we can all intellectually think about, but until it happens to you, when something like that happens to you, it's going to rock your world. So this is all a big deal. We get so desensitized to the news, don't we? I don't like to speak in generalizations like that, but I know it's true. That's a true generalization. You have to in order to cope. And the scientific social engineers, scientismist social engineers, they know that. Been studying how to manipulate, control, break the spirit of people for millennia. All right, let's see here. They recovered a second weapon, a shotgun, which had recently been purchased in Nevada. Where did the guy get the money? You know, shotguns aren't cheap if they're brand new. I couldn't tell you the exact price. I don't know what kind of gun. It could have been, who knows? Maybe they're as low as like $150 on up to, you know, you can, I'm sure the sky's the limit. How much was this AK-47 style? Where did he get the money? Let's see. Does it ask that question? Or is this more poor journalism? You know, these are the pros, right? NBC News. These are the pros. Yeah, well, BS. I'm gonna try to be more surgical. Right there would be a great time for me to say, the bad word and its full glory, unrighteous glory. But I will I'm gonna try to not do that. Not sure I like it so much, but I will say goddamn lies every time. That's the truth. The rifle was also purchased legally in Nevada. A bag containing information was also found in a creek. Oh, I'm sorry, ammunition. Now, why would the guy leave a bag containing ammunition in a creek area? Why wouldn't he carry ammunition? Now, if he's got an AK-47 / style weapon, again, the one young guy said it was an M4. And maybe he knows something about that. But they want to keep it. Most people can't get an M4, I believe. You know, I think it takes a little work. But an AK-47 you can buy, and an AR-15 you can buy pretty easily. And so they've got to keep it described that way. This is just something, just an observation, my idea. All right, a bag containing ammunition. So what I'm trying to say about that is these are going to be magazines or clips, depending on the gun. And not like a loose bag of bullets. So these magazines and clips are not cheap either, by the way, boys and girls, if you don't know that. They're expensive. Where did he get this money? Doesn't sound like he was working anywhere. We'd have heard that already, wouldn't we? Wouldn't we have? You know, he worked at the local Applebee's or whatever. He washed dishes. He was a host. He was a waiter. I don't know. You know, he had a paper route, whatever. Where'd he get the money? A very important question. There's no question here. We're halfway through. Let's see. I'm just going to scan real quick. That's the end of the article with the little NBC peacock here. No statement about where he got the money. No question. Ligon is thought to have used a tool to cut a hole in the fence to get into the festival, in spite of the fact some must have been a terrible witness who was actually shot, by the way, said he climbed over the fence. Why the contradictions? Ligon was living in an apartment in Walker Lake, a remote northern Nevada community, and not had any run-ins with the law, officials said. He appears to have moved into Mineral County this spring and maintained a low profile. Okay. Officials have searched the apartment, seized empty shotgun and rifle boxes, a gas mask. That's curious. Empty ammunition boxes. Well, that sounds like he's been practicing. Now, did anybody know he was practicing? Was he being trained? Right? These are questions. Electronic devices. I don't know what that means. Telephones or Xbox, you know. Pamphlets on guns and a sack full of ammunition casings. So he's collecting his casings. Now, why, if you went to a gun range, for example, or even a wilderness area, are you going to go around and pick up all your little, was he that conscientious? Going to go around and pick up all your shell casings? Why would you do that? Or was it hiding the fact? I don't know. I'm, again, thinking it through. Tuesday evenings, family members and friends of Kayla Salazar mourned the teen at a vigil. Kayla was a beautiful child and someone who really cared for other people. She cared about animals. She was our motivation, said her mom. And we're in pain that we lost her, no doubt. Again, I don't know that anyone didn't really die here. And that's a horrible tragedy. But you know what? If it offends you that I'm questioning this or even suggesting that it might be some kind of a black operation, for political reasons, for mind control reasons, social engineering, and also to part of the steering of the news cycle when there's bad news for the agendas. This fell right on the downbeat, right when things needed to flip. If that offends you, then I think you need to think things over. Because if it was I would want to know the truth of what happened, is what I'm saying. I believe the family members of like 9/11, right? And most of them do, by the way. They want to know the truth. They don't want to be lied to. They don't want to just wallow in their tragedy and believe an official narrative that may not be the truth. They really want to know the truth. It's built into us that we want, in a situation like this, that we kind of need to know what happened. So, second shooter, second support person, not even a shooter, second support person. That's the key thing. Probably would have been better if there was a shooter, second shooter, in the sense that, maybe he had a partner and they were both, like a Columbine situation, right? Like the Klebold and Harris. But to have a second person, people identified that there was somebody else that seemed to be working with him, but it wasn't a shooter. Well, that's really powerful. That means something to me. All right, next thing here, there's an article in the Drudge, Plastic Junk Spawns Desert Island Disaster in the Pacific. Okay, what I want to say about this, we're not even going through the article, so you can imagine that stuff coming off cruise ships, other ships, the currents cause it to pool, it becomes like an island. And there's a big plastic island out there of just sea trash that's come from man, right? And it's harmful to wildlife, all kinds of things. What's important about this? Fukushima. What do I mean? You never see anything except when Fukushima happened in 2014, March, I think it was, that you don't see anything anymore, really. Not really. But plastic junk, that's news. Fukushima. I've got the link in the description. This is on rents.com, and there's two archives here. Extinct, right down here, 7 years ago today. So was it, 2012? Is that when it was? All right, let me open this real quick. I kind of need to know the date, update my mental files here. Why did I think it was 2014? Maybe 2013. 3/11. 2011. Oh, that's longer than I thought. Well, we never hear about it. So, any rate, we don't hear about it, but there's a lot. It's very concerning. I don't eat tuna fish anymore. Let me put it that way. I used up the last of the tuna fish I had, and not until I get myself a Geiger counter. Is it Geiger counter? What do you call the radiation things? I'm sorry. I've noticed this very early in the morning. Yeah, I think it's Geiger counter. Yeah, Geiger counter. Get one of these. Okay, Geiger Mueller counter. You can get them. Just haven't bought one. I'd like to go to a grocery store and just scan some fish, see if we're picking up any, clicks. Love to do something like that. But there's a lot of information about some of the fallout that's not being reported. Insects dying, all the sea life that's dying out there. And yet it's a place where we're getting our food too. Be careful. Think about it. So that's all there is to say about that. I think this is very interesting. Chinese internet pioneer exposed misdeeds gets heavy prison term. Now this guy's 56 years old. I don't know how to say his name. Wang Qi, maybe. 56, who spent nearly 20 years exposing local government. This is local government malfeasance and brutality. Has already served 8 years in prison. Was found guilty by a court in southwestern China of deliberately disclosing state secrets and illegal providing state secrets to foreign entities. I don't know the details of the case. What secrets are they talking about? What does that mean? Is that a reframing of some things he did that you and I would be like, that's not that, But, it sounds like the guy they don't want him out of jail. Okay. In addition to the prison term, he was deprived of political rights for 4 years and fined almost $3,000. It was one of the longest sentences given to rights advocate in recent years, followed calls for clemency by human rights groups, foreign governments, in the United Nations. In light of Mr. Wang's chronic bad health, including high blood pressure as well as kidney and heart problems, the non-governmental organization Reporters Without Borders called the 12-year term equivalent to a death sentence, and probably is. Okay. So almost done here. Mr. Wang was most recently arrested in 2016 for inciting some version of state power, which often carries a prison term of up to 10 years. The more serious charge of divulging state secrets in his longer sentence may have stemmed from his unwillingness to cooperate or confess. So there you go. That's what, that's where they're getting that. Let's see. During his trial, secret trial, by the way, secret trial. Now, why am I going through this? This is in China. This is a guy we don't even know exactly the details. Well, this guy on the internet, basically doing what I'm doing, maybe a completely different way, completely different topics, but evil people don't like their deeds exposed. He was exposing them. He was like a whistleblower, and he was bold as a lion. And this has happened not just here. This happened in other places. People who criticize the what do you want to call it, royalty in some other southeastern places, they'll get prison sentences. Why is that important? Because what I'm doing right here in most places in the world is criminal. It would get me locked away. And make no mistake about it. And I don't think that people think about that enough. I really don't. And it's moving that way here. You think, oh, Uncle Benny, that'll never happen. We have constitutional rights. Do you? Really? How many of those have been violated one way or the other? What are they doing now by quote-unquote hate speech? What are they doing right now by, even with their algorithms or scrubbing and all this kind of thing, controlling your information, controlling your speech? And once it's complete, the social engineering, you're going to get people that tattle on you, report on you, or make false accusations. Let's say that you're somebody like me and somebody think, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. And it's like, you know what? I think he's doing X, Y, and Z, or and they let some authorities know, and make false accusations. How many people are killed in their doorway, being swatted by false accusations? How many dogs? Lots of dogs. Lots of dogs get shot. Somehow the men in blue have a real problem with the barking dog, and they can just shoot it. Another story. All right, so that's the point of this, is that we better get while the getting's good. The door's closing in this country. It already has in Canada. Apparently, if you if you're a preacher and you read anything out of the Word of God that has to do with homosexuality and what the Bible say about it, you can be arrested. You could be arrested. It's coming here. They've already proposed it. Who was the well, maybe not arrested yet, but I forgot who it was in Texas. I remember this politician wanted to get transcripts of all the local preachers. She needed to be seeing transcripts of their sermons. Anyway, moving on. Okay. Now, the Democratic / liberal / communist socialist debates were last night in Detroit, Michigan. Marianne Williamson. Now, I didn't even know till yesterday. I saw something about how she said a New Age prayer, something like this, and I vaguely am familiar with her name. I'm sure I have in pop culture. It's crossed my desk, let's say, right? I've never really looked at her, didn't even know what she looked like. I've heard the name. Maybe she's been on the radio or been on anyway, so if you look at the Drudge Report right here, okay, there's the one known as Pocahontas, because she claimed to be of Native American ancestry, or that so she could get minority privilege. Notice that? Not white privilege, minority privilege, and get some kind of job at Harvard or get into Harvard. Maybe it was her schooling. See, I don't really dig into some of this stuff because it's sort of, I don't know. I don't really care. I do care, but I don't care in the sense that I've got to know everything about her. I mean, she's inconsequential to me, but it's illustrative of hypocrisy and wickedness, and shows her character. That's all you need. That's all there is to know about that. The Drudge poll: who won the third Dem presidential debate? Now, why is a poll on this site important? In the last 24 hours, there's been, and it's only not even 7:30 this morning, there's been almost 30 million visitors. So the 30 million visitors, a few could be bothered to vote, but relatively speaking, Williamson, who for me was unknown as a candidate, I don't even know who Delaney is. Let's see who the ones I know. Now I know who she is. Don't know who this is. Warren, obviously that's Elizabeth Warren. Bernie Sanders. This is quote-unquote Mayor Pete. Whatever. Hickenlooper. I've kind of heard that name. Don't know anything about him. Bullock. I don't know. Sandra Bullock? I don't know who this is. Ryan. I don't know who that is. O'Rourke. I think that's Beto O'Rourke, the guy that rolls up his sleeves and talks like a marionette puppet, like with his arms all over the place. Klobuchar. I've heard the name. I don't really know anything about it. But anyway, look at this. The poll says Williamson just hands down won this debate. Now, I don't know what that means. If this is a Drudge poll and it's mostly conservatives, maybe Chino's, conservative name only, I don't know. Voting, they liked what she said. She out of all of these people was if you had to, choose the lesser of evil, that's maybe what that means. But anyway, she's a self-help guru. Who is she? She's a self-help guru. I think she married, she officiated the wedding ceremony of Elizabeth Taylor right here. I scanned this earlier. Her 7th wedding. Okay. Let's see here. Self-help author, had a moment in the first debate, called for defeating President Trump with love. She's kind of a spiritualist type of a person, New Ager or something like that. And all right, we're coming up on 40 minutes here, and I really had a thought. It's like, let's keep this 45 to 60 minutes at the most. I really want to wrap this up, and this probably had the most meat of what I could go through. I haven't even shared with you some of the things that let's frame it with the Word of God, okay? So this psalm is about there's no faithful. We're the faithful. We're the godly, right? So Psalm 12. Help, Lord, for the godly man ceaseth, for the faithful fail from among the children of men. They speak vanity, everyone with his neighbor. With flattering lips and with a double heart do they speak. Now, I'm applying that to when you hear politicians, generally they are flattering lips and speaking with a double heart. But, it goes on, the Lord shall cut off all flattering lips, and the tongue that speaketh proud things. They boast of what they're going to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to solve the world's problems. I'm going to solve your job problem, your poverty problem, your education problem, your healthcare problem, right? The Lord will cut off all flattering lips. Who have said, with our tongue will we prevail? Our lips are our own. Who is Lord over us? Remember, many of the people who want power, they aren't just reluctantly brought forth out of the crowd and hoisted on men's shoulders. No, they climb up on the stage. They seek a high place because they want to lord over people. They seek dominion. They want to be gods unto themselves and over you. There's very often that spirit within them. For the oppression of the poor, for the sighing of the needy, now will I arise, says the Lord. Well, these people act like God. They say, for the oppression of the poor, for the sighing of the needy, I will arise. I'll solve your problems. We'll take from these rich people. We'll tax them. We'll tax them down. Big companies, we'll tax them down and make them pay for the poor and the needy. Well, the Lord, through his people, is a blessing to the poor. The Master said, the poor shall always be with you, right? And by and large, one of the reasons this nation has a reputation of being very generous is because of its foundations in the prevalence of Christianity, of people honoring the dignity of all human beings, of working with their hands, of being industrious, right? Of being good stewards, and being charitable. Those are Christian tenets. That's where that's all come from, right? But the statists want to usurp the authority of God. They want to usurp the role of the church in the land and be God. When you get your benefits from the state, you effectually make the state your God. What are you talking about, Uncle Benny? How do you know that? Well, let me just pull this one up. I haven't really let's see here. There we go. Psalm 103. Psalm 103. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. You've heard this before, right? But it goes on. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives all thine iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases. Well, there's your health care plan. How about that? Who redeemeth thy life from destruction, who crowns thee with loving kindness and tender mercies, who satisfies thy mouth with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagles. The Lord executes righteousness and judgment for all that are oppressed. And you think about all this. Extrapolate this. This isn't to say that God is just going to do a miracle for your diseases and your ailments that your sinful lifestyle is brought upon you, right? But the Lord is a living God. He is real, and he can heal. He'll lead you to healing. Let food be thy medicine. He will fill your mouth with good things. He satisfies your mouth with good things so that your youth is renewed. Life-giving food. The poor, right? They don't have anything to eat. Nobody should really be starving in this country. You can buy a foot long for $5 or $6. Where do you get $5 or $6, Uncle Benny? You think you can't come up with $5 or $6 pretty easily? Even if you had to have your hand out. That's a lot of food, by the way, a foot long. There's food pantries. There's churches. If you walked into a restaurant and said, I'm hungry, do you think a manager wouldn't maybe try to help you out? Come on. That's no way to live. But my point is that the Lord feeds the sparrows. The Lord feeds the birds. Aren't you worth more than that? Aren't all the poor worth more than that? They are. Right? So anyway, again, we're getting our armor on, getting tuned up. The Lord continues and says, I will set him in safety, and from him that puffs at him. And that word puff, one moment. Yeah, I guess I got to take my time here. I got to be thorough. I have a reputation for being thorough, by the way. Here it is. I looked it up earlier, now I've forgotten. Okay, the puff is to blow with the breath or air. Blowing hot air. Bring into a snare. Okay. Blowing hot air, bringing him into a snare. The Lord will set him in safety from those that puff at him. Are these democratic socialists? Are these socialists? Are these, promising all these things for free, bringing people into a snare? What about that whole healthcare tax that was going on that compelled people? Now, instead of having control of their own health, their own decisions, by law, by decree, you must pay money to these businesses. And there's only a few that that are part of the, you have a window to sign up with these people. It's a snare, right? I will set him in safety from him that puffs at him. The words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. Now that's pure, buddy. That's why we're reading the word. These are pure words, and they're cut like a sword. Thou shalt keep them, O Lord. Thou shalt preserve them from this generation forever. That was said thousands of years ago. Preserve them from this generation forever. Now those people are dead, but there is a forever, and there is life in the resurrection in the Son, and they're preserved. They're preserved forever. The righteous will be resurrected unto righteousness, unto everlasting life through Christ. Okay, the Messiah, Yeshua. And what about this generation? Are we being preserved from this generation? This wicked generation? The Master said in his day, you wicked and perverse generation. That was thousands of years ago. Anyway, last verse. The wicked walk on every side when the vilest men are exalted. Oh, so good. So true. These people making empty promises. They have false gods. She doesn't believe in the God that we're talking about, the God that we're abiding in right now. She does not. But she wants to lead a nation where many people, at least the best they can, believe that they're serving, living for, redeemed by the God of the Bible. But author Marianne Williamson wants to be the head of the nation, president. And she might well be. I use that word, I'd never seen her, well, maybe I had seen her before, hadn't paid much attention, but I came across this picture and something struck me. There's something funny. What are you trying to say, Uncle Benny? Well, we're living in a trans-apocalyptic world. So just take note of that. Take note of that. I don't know that she's married. Does she have children? I don't know. Anyway, I'm kind of going away from what maybe when I was first scanning it I thought to say. In the description of this YouTube video, I pretty much put the entire Psalm 37 in there, but I had to trim it down because it said my description was too long. So let's see here. Anyway, basically it says don't worry about the wicked. Well, how are they wicked? Well, they're advocating stealing, first of all. Big time stealing. Basically making the state more powerful than ever before. Well, the Republicans do the same thing. You're right. Take note of that. Remember that. They give you a false dichotomy. What does that mean? We are given a false dichotomy, false choices. You can't win. You're going to have to choose a, quote, lesser of two evil, and that's how they advance the evil. It's really just that simple. Where the music's coming from. Shut that off. Let's see here. I did hear her speak, and it was kind of funny. Maybe this is it. Let's see if we can. Let's hear this.
Going to block and tackle.
We got to fix our democracy.
I can't stand to hear him either. Let's see. This might be the yodel they're talking
Ms. Williamson, how do you respond to the criticism from Senator Warren that you're not willing to fight for Medicare for all?
I don't know if Senator Warren said that about me specifically. I admire very much what Senator Warren has said and what Bernie has said. But I have to say, I'm normally way over there with Bernie and Elizabeth on this one. I hear the others, and I have some concern about that as well. And I do have concern about what the Republicans would say. And that's
okay, that's enough. You heard kind of what they were talking about, the yodeling. That was kind of interesting. Don't forget, the guy, what was his name? He was a doctor, and he came out and let out this kind of war whoop. They made fun of him on a lot of like Saturday Night Live type of skits. I can't remember his name, but pretty much cost his campaign. It just blew him right out because he made this kind of ungodly scream that was cringy, you know. I don't know. Check out her dress. She looks like a witch. Well, maybe that's not fair. But I think she is. She's probably a New Age priestess of some sort, you know. Or seems to be. Let's see here. There was something I scanned here earlier that might be worth mentioning. Oh, maybe it had to do with the racism. Okay. There was a lot about racism here. Yeah, let me just find that and then I'll wrap it up here. Well, here's one thing. Okay, I already mentioned transpocalypse. Okay, her first call. They asked her what her first call would be. This article is mainly about Williamson. Her first call, her first act as president. She said she would call Prime Minister of New Zealand Jacinda Ardern. Now, if you've never seen, just look into it. New Zealand Prime Minister. New Zealand's got big problems, man. It's a fascistic state in a lot of ways. Beautiful country, but it seems to be quite, quite the model for where they're trying to take us. How about that? My first call is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who said that her goal is to make New Zealand the place where it's best world for a child to grow up. Now that sounds really wonderful, doesn't it? Make no mistake, when you hear something like this, it's probably backwards. It's probably going to be the worst place for a child to grow up. Now I make statements sometimes, and I don't, I'm not going to go and try to back all that up. This just comes from the collective experience and consciousness of what I've come to know about things like this. And it's probably the opposite. You better, when they go left, you better dodge right, right? When they go right, you better dodge left. And I don't mean left or right politically. I'm just saying, like, if you're thinking of like sparring and boxing, when they're faking right, but they're going left. That's another way to look at it. Okay. So she is a fan, it looks like, of Jacinda Ardern. Well, Jacinda Ardern, notwithstanding, she had, quote unquote, was pregnant and had a baby, apparently, and is married, apparently. Let's look into the trans stuff about Jacinda Ardern. She appears not so sure. Let me just say that. It's not so clear that she's a real female. Let me put it that way. Let's see. Here, another speech from Debating from the Stage. This is about reparations. So yeah, I'm glad I am getting a little bit of a second win here for this. Williams called out racial disparities by pointing to the wealthy Detroit enclave where she lives compared to the issues with clean water by nearby Flint. What happened in Flint would not happen in Grosse Pointe. She lives in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, which is coastal part of around Detroit. And when it's on the water, there's money there, right? This is part of the dark underbelly of American society. The racism, the bigotry, the conversation that we're having here tonight. If you think any of this wonkiness is going to deal with the dark psychic force of the collectivized hatred that this president is bringing up in this country. So there's collectivized hatred, meaning Trumpsters, Trump supporters, white conservatives is what this really means. Collectivized. They're a collective of hate. Then I'm afraid that the Democrats are going to see some very dark days. We need to say it like it is. Okay, here we go. Here we go. On the wealth transfer, I didn't watch this debate. I got better things to do, really. Don't listen to foolish people. On a wealth transfer to the descendants of slaves, just think about why is this even a topic? It's crazy. I don't have to tell you things are bad. We all know things are bad. Everywhere, everyone going crazy. She called for reparations. And yet 46% of Drudge people said that she won. Does that mean they favor her? She called for reparations and said America will heal only when there's some deep truth-telling. Well, America might heal when there's a lot of lies that stop. You might say, well, that's the same as truth-telling. No, the racial division is greatly stoked by people like this. In fact, this conversation ostensibly makes it look like a positive thing. But what do you think as a white person you would think what does this mean? Reparations? It means black people get a check and white people pay for it. That's what this means. America will heal only when there's some deep truth-telling. Now get this, man. Williamson argued that anything less than $100 billion set aside for black Americans is an insult, and I believe that $200 to $500 billion is politically feasible today. This issue is so full of holes. Just because you're black and American, that's basically, does that mean that you were descended from slaves? No. There are a lot of black Americans here that came from other parts of the world well after. They aren't descendants of quote-unquote slaves, And even so, does that mean that they're owed a bunch of money? Let's talk about this. We're not hearing this talk about how did the slaves get here? Who sold the black slaves to the slave traders? Other black people. Who were primarily slave traders in the day? Well, let's just say they were a little bit Semitic, Jewish. I wouldn't say good Jews, Talmudic Jews. I don't have all the information on this. You have to look into it yourself. I'm not prepared for that. I'm just saying that this was a business, and there's a lot of stuff going on that's not talked about. Is all I'm saying. That's my point. I'm not slamming. I do have. I'm not a Zionist. I believe evangelical churchianity, which is largely Zionist, is way wrong. They're serving the synagogue of Satan. I believe there's a synagogue of Satan, those who claim to be Jews but are not. And that's generally going to be the ones that are involved in this kind of wickedness. Not every Jew. Don't make me do your thinking for you. If you want to believe, there are those, if you make it this far, someone might seize on that. Oh, he's an anti-Semite. Nope. I love Palestinians. How about that? They're Semites too, So, all right. 200 to 500 billion is politically feasible. So many Americans realize there's an injustice that continues to form a toxicity underneath the surface, an emotional turbulence that only reparations will deal with. Really, you're going to buy them off? You're going to buy off their hatred? So you're going to give, what's that break down to per black American? I don't really know. But do you think, let's just say it's $10,000 American. I don't know. I haven't done the math. Do you think $10,000 is going to fix their problems? Do you think it's going to fix their heart? Do you think it's, there is, a lot of people do like to play the victim. It gives them an excuse. And do you think that once if the money's misspent, or they continue to have poverty, or continue to not be able to do or achieve what they think they ought to achieve, that they're going to stop blaming white people? This thinking is so stunted. But they know this. This woman, Marianne Williamson, didn't become a famous author and get up there on stage because she's a dumb woman. She knows what she's doing. Okay? She said it was time to some deep truth-telling on the issue. Well, I've heard anything but truth so far, right? Truth is the whole truth. Remember? I swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. The whole truth. You can't have half-truth. Payment of debt that is owed. That is what reparations is, she said, to applause. Now remember, she's not the problem. It's the people that go along and support this. It's time for us to simply realize this country will not heal. People heal when there's some deep truth-telling. Well, somehow truth-telling is equated to payoff. We need to recognize when it comes to the economic gap between the blacks and whites in America, it does come from a great injustice that's never been dealt with. What makes me qualified to say 200 to 500 billion? I'll tell you what makes me qualified. If you did the math on 40 acres and a mule, given that there was 4 to 5 million slaves at the end of the Civil War. Now, at first blush, face value, I got a problem with that number. I got a problem. 4 to 5 million slaves. I don't know what the population. I'm going to probably need to look into this because that seems ridiculous. First of all, let me tell you something. Most of us have ideas of what slavery is because of the public government re-education camps and what you were told. Maybe a picture or two of a scarred back that was flogged for we don't know what. And the movie Roots. And then all the media commentary throughout the ages. The people believing the false premise that slaves were all whipped with whips, treated like animals. Well, let me tell you something. How many plantation owners do you think there really were? Do you think that between, I don't know how many plantations there were, let's say there were 500 plantations in the South. Do you think that's going to translate to 4 to 5 million? Who could control that? That's a lot of people. I don't know how many Israelites there were in Egypt under Pharaoh. I should know this. I'll have to look it up, but it just came to mind. 4 to 5 million slaves? You think 4 to 5 million slaves couldn't have kind of very quickly organized and, at least on one or two of these and just taken over? Let me just say this. Plantation owners were business people. If they had workers that they housed, fed, took care of their health needs, birthed their children, these were expensive assets. Just like if you had, now don't go crazy here because I'm making an analogy to this. If you had animals on your farm that were work animals like horses or oxen, you don't treat them badly. You take very good care of them. So we've got a lot of false ideas. Want to talk about truth telling? Let's talk about the truth about slavery. Now, does that mean that a slave could have just run off? I'm sure that they did and were punished, and these kind of things happened. They were considered property. I don't know what to say about that at the moment. Obviously we don't want to own people. And were there ever bad and wicked masters or people that were not the plantation owner but given charge over them that were abusive or maybe molested the women? Yes, certainly, I'm sure of it. But most people's at least subconscious idea of slavery is this oppressive, horrible situation, which, hey man, I wouldn't want to be owned and made to do certain labors and things like this, but those were a different time, and they were emancipated, and I believe many of them could earn their freedom at the time, at certain points, certain times, in certain ways, to a certain degree, things, anyway, I didn't mean to go off on a whole soliloquy or sidetrack on slavery, but this is just incredible to me that she says there's 4 to 5 million slaves. Now, I may stand corrected. I'll go look into it. It just seems absurd. And they were all promised 40 acres and a mule for every family of 4. If you did the math today, that would be trillions of dollars. Okay? In another moment where she called out fellow Democrats, Williamson went after politicians who themselves have taken tens of thousands, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars from corporate donors. From these same, and the sentence is cut off. I don't know. I don't think the Democratic Party should be surprised that so many Americans believe yada, 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 she said. I don't know what that means. Any rate, reparations. She's a big proponent of white people paying black people, and that's her answer to healing a racial divide. Well, I believe that this idea itself is divisive, is causing racial division, is aggravating. If there's any wounds, let's say, or how many, did you ever hear about reparations 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Really? On any major level? But now, young people are thinking, just like the entitlement generation, oh yeah, those white people, their ancestors enslaved us. Really? What about the North? How are you going to track all this down? Who is even related to a plantation owner or a slave owner. You know? Everyone, every white person, but believe me, this is, and you know it's true, this is how people don't think. They don't think. They get obtuse ideas in their heads and make major decisions by them. Make major opinions, make major, have major feelings about them. And what's the primary feeling here? Resentment, discontent. You know, godliness with contentment is great gain. What is she doing? She's sowing discontentment. Payment of a debt that's owed. Owed to who? The people who were enslaved are dead. Okay? They're dead. The people who enslaved them are dead. So great-great-great-great-grandchildren now owe their hard-earned labor. They had nothing to do with it. Maybe they did not even know those people. I mean, this is just absurd. Don't you see the absurdity in it? But yet it is a current topic that's being stoked by probably the interviewer. They're talking about it, and they're like it's a viable subject. It's a real important issue, and that it's the answer to all the racial division that, by the way, has by and large created. It's created a lot of it. Obviously, again, don't make me do your thinking for you. There are economic gaps. There are things like that do go on in places. There are divisions, you know, and there are some that are absolute racist. You know, that's true, but they're so minimal. But it's made like every white person is a racist. When they talk about racism, make no mistake, as they like to say. Let me be clear. Make no mistake. Who's they? The powers that shouldn't be. The mouthpieces. Racism, when they say racism, they mean white people. Oppressive white people. That's what they mean. They don't ever talk about the racism that people of color can exhibit with impunity. And that's rampant. And a lot of black people, by the way, would agree with that. Thus said the Lord my Redeemer, that he that formed you in the womb. I am the Lord that makes all things, that stretches forth the heavens alone, that spreads abroad the earth by myself, that frustrates the tokens of the liars, and makes diviners mad, and turneth wise men backward, and make their knowledge foolish. Now I want to explain a little bit about this. The tokens of liars means they're monuments to their lies. Means it frustrates the tokens of the liars. They're monuments to their lies, the institutions of their lies, the things they build with their lies, and makes diviners, that'd be the witchcraft, mad. Frustrates them. The witchcraft, I was talking about it yesterday, how they get their stories screwed up. God frustrates and makes diviners mad. He can cause confusion even within their ranks. And there's illustrations of that in the Old Testament, where the enemy, God instructs his people to do this or that, maybe seemingly odd thing, but then the enemy, they all commit suicide. They turn their swords upon themselves. That's how powerful the Lord is. So don't fear. Fear not, my friends. And he turns the wise men backward. Now, this is not the wise men who are wise in the Lord. This is the wisdom of the world. These are those who make themselves wise, who believe themselves wise through science, falsely so called, and things like that, and make their knowledge foolish. That confirms the word of his servant and performs the counsel of his messengers, that said to Jerusalem, Thou shalt be inhabited, and to the cities of Judah you shall be built, and I will raise up the decayed places thereof. This speaks to resurrection, God's power to restore what's been broken down, to restore what's been eaten by the locusts. And when he says Jerusalem shall be inhabited, the cities of Judah, that means that the establishment of his kingdom in your heart, in this world, in the world to come, it will be done. He will perform what he's spoken. But the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of the Lord shall be as the fat of the lambs. They shall consume, and into smoke they shall consume away. The wicked borrows and pays not again, but the righteous shows mercy and gives. I was talking about that earlier, about the righteous show mercy and they give. But the wicked borrow and pay not again. Now, what am I talking about? I pulled this verse out. This is Psalm 37, 20 to 21, for a reason. The wicked get up and say, we can pay the reparations. We can pay for everyone's health care and everyone's education. We should absolve student debt. Who's paying for that? They aren't. They're getting richer and richer. They'll be fat as lambs, right? But into smoke they'll consume away. The Lord will make sure of it. The wicked borrows and pays not again. This has an application here. The wicked borrow. The wicked spend money that isn't theirs. That's what that means. The wicked spend money through taxation, by the point of the gun, through law, through robbery. You've seen it around, maybe on your Facebook. Maybe you'll get an occasional libertarian or something that posts a meme, taxation is theft. Well, think about it. Maybe you believe that whole thing about there's nothing for sure but death and taxes. You know, like you have to, what did Howard Beale say? Like this is the way it's supposed to be. Right? Let me just make sure I want to read that again real quick. Let's see here. And then we're done. Almost done. Well, there it is. Okay. One of these days soon, I'll have this completely memorized, right? You know? But I keep embellishing it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, our food's unfit to eat, and we sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us today they awaited 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. Be aware, a lot of the repetition is mind control. It's the simplest form of mind control. You can have that for free. There you go. There's an insight. There's a key to the kingdom. Repetition is the simplest form of mind control. And who did they quote it? Who did they attribute to from the World War II, the Nazis? Goebbels, maybe? Which one's the propagandist? Maybe it's Goebbels. At any rate, you tell people a lie often enough, it becomes truth. Something to that effect, right? So there you go. Marianne Williamson. Now, I want to talk about, again, the false dichotomy, things going on. I've alluded to Freemasons before. I put these links in here. You can look into it. I never really explored these sites, but they seem to be worthwhile. But I want to point out a book to you called "The Secret Architecture of Our Nation's Capital." What's going on today is by design. When I say what's going on, I'm talking about the deconstruction of this country, the erosion of it, shaping it into something else, like the phoenix. Out of the ashes comes the phoenix. This is a concept. It's an occultic concept. There's Washington, Freemason. What does that mean, Uncle Benny? There's your Kabbalah. Here's your Kabbalah sign here, okay? What does that mean? Well, you're going to need to do a little work, right? The Master said, take heed that no man deceive you. That means you got to do a little work to make sure you're not deceived. But look into it, okay? Here's the goat head. This is satanic, obviously. This is Washington, D.C., the layout. These are all like touch point monument type of things or buildings, whether it's the Masonic Temple or whatnot. They make up the goat head. And you can look into it, So that website's down there. And then Lucifer is the god of Freemasonry. So there are those that say that, Albert Pike was misquoted at some speech, so it's debunked. That's on a Freemasonry site, by the way. In fact, this is the quote right here, by the way, that where he says, the true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer, equal of Adonai. Adonai would be the God of the Bible, right? The living God. But Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil. So everything's flipped. Remember, I've talked about witchcraft and things being backward and flipped upside down. And that's why when I pointed out on Drudge, the pyramid that was upside down in the text format, and it had an antecedent on the 4th of July, and it's in my video there, where very curiously they had the explosions above the Lincoln Memorial they connected like an all-seeing eye, and then the way the fonts and the sentences of the headlines were stacked, there you had a pyramid. Curious, puzzling evidence. You think about it. So Albert Pike, he's the man for Freemasonry in this country especially. He wrote Morals and Dogma. That's their big deal. 33rd degree Freemason. Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name given to the spirit of darkness. He's saying it's, if he's the spirit of darkness, that's an odd name to give him, isn't it? Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light and with its splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not, Anyway, my point being is that Masonry at its head and at its core is Luciferian. It's and many of your councilmen, your city. Here you go. Maybe how when you see a new car style and all of a sudden you're seeing it everywhere. Every time you go into a town, city, or whatnot, you're gonna, in this country, United States, keep your eye out on the city limits as you're entering that town. You're gonna see a Freemasonry lodge number, whatever. It'll usually be blue, and it'll have set and compass on it or something that will indicate that they've owned that town. They own that town, lock, stock, and barrel. You better believe it. Mayor, police chief, somewhere in there, there's somebody working, and they're part of the brotherhood. Okay, there you go. So you be the judge and jury. That's the name of this website. No, I've not explored this website. I just pulled it up. I think it's probably worthwhile and pretty interesting. Talks about Albert Pike. You can go Bilderberg groups, Club of Rome, Council on Foreign Relations. This looks like a wealth of information. Whoever put this together actually has quotes scripture and things in there. So, maybe worthwhile. But, I'm confident that the general premise and conclusion is the same, that I've already come to know. And that this guy, which, by the way, in Washington, D.C., there is a statue, a monument to him. Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rites. Watch out. Watch out. These Masons, they are building something. They're laying foundations. They're tearing up foundations and laying foundations continually. Okay. Out of the chaos, look on your dollar bill. From chaos comes order. Order out of chaos. Order out of chaos. So they create the chaos and then bring the order. Right? If I created a big problem for you, and you didn't know I created it, I created a big problem for you, but then I came in and rescued you from it, you'd think I'm a hero. And you'd feel obligated or indebted to me. It's along those lines. If you didn't know that, there you go. If you already did, well, pass it on. So that's it for Uncle Benny. You make a great day. It's 8:07 Eastern time. I don't know how I did. Hour and 15 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. I don't know. It's never my intention. All right. Make a great day. Don't get any on you. Don't let the bastards get you down. These people, the wicked people, and pray for them. Sure, ask the Lord to redeem them. No one's beyond redemption. If there's still breath, there's still hope, right? And the Lord didn't come into the world to condemn the world. He didn't come in to save a few people and make them self-righteous snobs or anything like that. No, but for the grace of God, there go I. These people are in darkness. They believe lies. They're deceived. Remember, Satan's a liar. And he lied at the beginning. And that's how we fell, through deceit and through lies. And this is why fighting the lies, cutting through the lies, the darkness is so important. It's of primary importance. And that's why the Master said, what will be, when his disciples asked him, and it's recorded, what will be the end of the age and the sign of your coming? I would love to see his face or hear how he said it. But the first thing out of his mouth, take heed that no man deceive you. Make a great day.